Brad, seeking a fresh start, accepted the position of gardener at a sumptuous mansion belonging to a millionaire doctor. However, behind the elegant gates, he discovers an unexpected mystery: his wife, who disappeared 5 years ago. The luxurious setting of the mansion transforms into the stage for an emotional reunion, and the revelations Brad unearths leave him completely bewildered. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Many years ago, in 1985, Brad woke up every morning with a smile on his face, next to his beloved Elise. The two were a young couple who felt blessed to have a beautiful son named Lucas. The family shared happy moments, building memories that seemed unbreakable. But one day, everything changed. It was a morning like so many others when Elise said goodbye to the family to head to work. As she left, she reassured her husband, explaining that she would return a bit later that day because she had a trip scheduled to another city where she would visit a client for a work commitment. However, the hours passed and she did not return. Brad began to worry and tried to go to his wife's company but did not find her there either. They said she hadn't come in that day. Time was passing and the husband's anxiety was growing. Desperate, Brad sought help by going to the police to report Elise's disappearance. Authorities began an investigation, but there were no clues about her whereabouts. Brad searched hospitals, shelters, and even consulted friends and family, but nothing. Uncertainty and emptiness settled into his life. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Brad now cared for Lucas alone, trying to fill the void left by Elise's disappearance. In the silence of the night, he found himself looking at photos of his wife, recalling the happy moments they had shared. Tears fell, and the longing became a constant companion. Every special date, Lucas's birthday, end-of-year holidays, was marked by a painful absence. Brad did his best to be a present father, but the pain of uncertainty corroded his heart. He constantly wondered what could have happened to Elise and why she had disappeared so mysteriously. After a prolonged search, the police found no concrete evidence and asked Brad to consider the possibility that Elise was dead. It was devastating news for him, but deep down he hoped to find her. The loss of his beloved wife was mixed with the difficulty of explaining his mother's disappearance to Lucas. Brad faced emotional and practical challenges, trying to balance the deep sadness with the responsibility of raising Lucas alone. The love for his lost family was the force that drove him forward, but the longing persisted like a constant shadow. Years passed since Elise's disappearance, and Brad's life took unexpected turns. He faced the difficulties of raising Lucas alone, but the determination to offer the best for his son was his driving force. However, financial stability became a challenge, and having been fired from his previous job, he found himself in search of a new opportunity. Without hope, one day while flipping through the local newspaper searching for jobs, his eyes landed on an intriguing offer, a position for gardening services at a majestic mansion. The opportunity was very interesting and paid very well, so Brad decided to apply for the position. With his work history and gardening skills, the man was called for an interview. The mansion's owner, named Miguel, was an elderly and kind man who was impressed with Brad's experience and knowledge. Before long, he received the news that he had been hired to take care of the gardens of that spectacular property. The mansion was surrounded by well-kept lawns, lush flowers, and a variety of majestic trees. As Brad continued to cultivate the beauty in the mansion's gardens, a new phase of his life began to blossom. Within the first few days, Brad dedicated himself intensely to gardening. Miguel, the owner, noticing his commitment, entrusted him with more responsibilities, including the maintenance of indoor areas. On a day like any other workday, while Brad was tending to the mansion's gardens, something extraordinary happened. On the horizon, he saw a distant figure that, as it approached, revealed itself as a spectre from the past: Elise, his missing wife. At first, Brad hesitated to believe what he was seeing, his mind haunted by the impossibility of that vision. As she drew nearer, disbelief gave way to an overwhelming mix of emotions. He ran toward her, standing before the woman he thought he had lost forever. But as he approached Elise, she looked at him with strangeness, as if Brad's approach was an unexpected intrusion into her reality. Brad, confused and stunned by the situation, tried to find words to express the whirlwind of feelings engulfing him. With a racing heart and a hope that seemed reborn, he asked, "Elise, my love, what happened? Where have you been? I thought you were gone forever." The question sprang forth, driven by the desperation to understand what had happened. To him, 5 years felt so recent, and he still felt everything intensely. Tears began to stream from his eyes, an expression of anguish at the mystery surrounding Elise's absence. However, her response was one of surprise and confusion. "Who are you? Why are you asking these questions? My name is Julia." The impact of the revelation was overwhelming for him. Elise did not remember, nor did she recognize who he was. Perplexity took over Brad, but he persisted. Trying to awaken some memory, he pulled from his pocket a faded photo capturing a happy moment between Elise and their son, Lucas. Upon displaying the image, a flash of recognition crossed Elise's eyes but was immediately replaced by deep fear. She seemed not to understand what was happening. Fear gripped her, and she took a step back, her eyes fixed on the photo as if it were unreal. Brad, still not understanding, replied, "I'm sorry. You look a lot like my wife who disappeared many years ago." Without explanation, the woman quickly backed away, entering the mansion as if seeking shelter from something she couldn't comprehend. Brad, perplexed, stood there at the entrance of the mansion's garden, holding the photo that seemed to be a broken link between a forgotten past and a present full of mysteries. The young man was stunned, a mix of emotions boiling inside him upon learning that Elise, his beloved wife and mother of his son, was alive. That revelation had brought a spark of hope. Without hesitation, Brad sought answers from Miguel, his employer, hoping to unravel the mystery surrounding Elise's presence in that imposing mansion. Calling him for a conversation, Brad felt the urgency pulsating in his words, choked by the tears that refused to stay hidden. "Mr. Miguel, I have a question to ask. Who is the woman living here in your house? She seems very familiar, as if she was someone I knew." The words escaped Brad with a tone of apprehension, fearing that his suspicions might be mistaken or the result of some hallucination. Miguel was shocked, his eyes showing perplexity, and he responded with a revealing question. "Brad, who does she look like?" Brad, his voice laden with restrained emotion, replied, "She looks a lot like my wife Elise, who disappeared 5 years ago." A moment of silence settled, as if the weight of the revelation hung over the two men. Miguel's gaze showed understanding mixed with a touch of concern. Then, taking a deep breath, Miguel began to explain. That woman, who had introduced herself to Brad as Julia, was in fact someone he had hired as a maid almost 5 years ago. The encounter with her brought to light a complex story involving a significant period in her life. At the time, Miguel, a renowned doctor at the hospital in a neighbouring city, had crossed paths with Julia. She had fallen ill at a bus station, receiving first aid and being taken to the nearest hospital. Diagnosed with fainting due to a stroke, Julia remained hospitalised for a period. When she regained consciousness, she had lost her memory. She didn't know who she was, her name, or where she lived. The doctors, faced with this delicate situation, made efforts to locate her family, using posters and other traditional means. However, the search was unsuccessful, and the conclusion was that no one seemed to be looking for her. Upon being discharged, Julia faced the arduous task of rebuilding her life, knowing only that her past was shrouded in mystery. Back then, searching for lost family members was a considerable challenge without electronic resources and social media. The difficulty in finding loved ones required a combination of determination, patience, and often financial resources to hire professional services. However, Julia, devoid of any financial or familial support, decided to start her journey from scratch, building a new story from the void that the past had left. Miguel, at that time, was deeply moved by the young woman's story and, tortured by her situation, offered her a job to work in his home. It was a generous gesture that provided Julia with not only a home but also an occupation. For her, it seemed like a fresh start after so many uncertainties. Brad, unable to contain his tears upon the revelation, asserted with conviction, "I am sure she is my wife, Elise." It was as if fate had conspired for him to find the one who had disappeared from his life. With a mix of emotions, Brad shared with Miguel all the details of the day Elise had disappeared, and everything matched. Coincidentally, the doctor had brought her back to her hometown. Brad continued sharing that they had a son named Lucas, and a wave of surprise swept over Miguel. Julia was not just an employee. She had become like a member of his family. Miguel was moved to discover that Elise had a husband who still loved her deeply and waited anxiously to find her. Brad, determined and passionate, insisted, "I will bring her back to our family." He was willing to help her recover the lost memories and, who knows, win her back. It was a promise that the love between them had not been erased by any circumstances. The man was determined to do everything to rebuild what time and amnesia had taken away. Determined to get closer to Julia, Brad approached the situation with sensitivity and persistence. The first conversation between Brad and Julia was permeated with palpable genuineness. At her core, Julia longed for a life her memory could not reach, a nostalgia that reverberated silently. Julia's willingness to listen attentively, and even if vaguely, try to retrieve fragments of her lost history, was already a great joy for Brad. He chose to share affectionate moments and significant stories that harkened back to when they were a united family. Each word was chosen with care, in the hope of awakening some remnants of memory or emotion in Julia. Julia, for her part, received these recollections with a mix of curiosity and confusion. Her eyes reflected an internal search for lost connections, but the memories seemed distant, shrouded by a veil of amnesia. She responded with receptiveness, but the process of reconnection was gradual and complex. However, Lucas's presence in the equation added an extra layer of emotion. Brad spared no effort to involve his son in the family reconstruction efforts. He shared old photos, told stories filled with affection, and sought to create new memories with little Lucas. The child, in turn, expressed a mix of curiosity and acceptance towards this father who was returning to his life. Miguel, observing the entire process, saw the sincerity and love in Brad's eyes. He was willing to offer all the necessary support, guiding Brad, Julia, and Lucas through this emotional journey. Believing in the strength of the affection that united them, Miguel became a fundamental pillar in the reconstruction of this fragmented family. With each attempt at approaching, with each shared tear, the story of that complex family unfolded. Julia, or Elise, never recovered the memories of her lost past, but Brad persisted with love and dedication. Gradually, he won her heart again, as if writing a new story that transcended the barriers of time and lost memories. The love between Brad and Elise flourished once more, nurtured by patience, understanding, and the mutual desire to rebuild what fate had taken away. Elise found in Brad's gaze a strength capable of filling the voids in her memory. Furthermore, the bond with Lucas grew even stronger. She loved the boy with a renewed intensity, as if life had granted her a second chance to be a mother, even though the pages of the past remained sealed. The family, now reunited, learned to treasure each moment as a gift. The home, once marked by absence, was now filled with laughter, shared stories, and above all, a love that withstood the adversities. Brad's journey to win back the woman he loved turned into a saga of family renaissance, highlighting the human heart's ability to heal and rebuild, even in the face of the deepest losses. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.